bar over the door, 25 squats, 25 crunches. I did press-ups until the muscles in my arms burned. Afterwards, I started brewing some coffee. I'd only taken a single cup before I left the house, but then I changed my mind and set the pot back on the stove. I decided to go into town and have coffee at the Zodiac instead. Outside the Zodiac, the chairs and tables were already out. I nodded at a couple of the guys. One of them worked in the garage next door. Fabian had hired a new girl for the summer who smiled at all the customers, which here is as disconcerting as if she walked through the street singing. She told me Fabian was on his way in. I ordered a coffee. Someone else called for a kolovachko. We sat in silence and watched people passing in the street. It was close to 9 by the time Fabian showed up. Fabian drives a custom-sprayed BMW, meaning nobody else has one in the same colour, and so he doesn't need to bother to lock it. He was wearing a new suede jacket, something like the colour of butter, and freshly laundered jeans, faded and tight around the balls. Fabian's put on a few kilos over the years, and the waistband of his jeans cut into his gut. He wore a year-round tan and the beginning of jowls. Fabian joined me. He didn't have much choice. I'd taken his table, which is something I do to annoy him, a small pleasure in a quiet town. He put his car keys and Marlboro lights on the table, called for a kolovachko, and rummaged in his pocket. Lately he'd been complaining of a toothache, but he hates dentists, and so took 2 pills with his first gulp of beer. Fabian's gums are receding at the same rate as his hair. One of his front teeth is broken. I knew how he'd broken it and when. In all that time, he'd never had it fixed. A gold glint in the back of his mouth provided the sole evidence of dental work. I wondered if Fabian was sleeping with the new girl. "What's up?" I said. Fabian shrugged and sipped his beer. We sat. I finished my coffee and called for another. The postman arrived, climbed off his bike and leant it against the railing at the front of the cafe. "Dobar dan," he said. We nodded. I said hello. My father used to work at the post office, and I knew a few of this man's colleagues, even if he himself had only arrived 10 years ago or less, by which time my father was dead. The girl came from inside to take the mail and smiled at him. The postman cycled away. Minutes passed, but I am a patient man. I ordered a third coffee. Eventually someone spoke, and it was what I'd come for. "New people in the old Parvich house?" It was the guy sitting with the one who worked in the garage. He was jug-eared and fat. Fabian grunted, cleared his throat, sucked his teeth. Nobody spoke. After a minute or two, the same man spoke again. "English, English." And because he knew he had our attention, he continued. "Not visitors. They've bought it." The man worked in the municipal offices. I'd dealt with him a few times when I went in to pick up building permissions. Fabian stared ahead of him into the street and cracked his knuckles, as if the news was of no interest to him. He called for the girl to bring over the post and made a show of being busy. I waited to see if the man had any more to add, and when he decided he didn't, I paid my bill and left for home. Next morning I worked before sunrise. I worked through my exercises, and since it was still early, I drank a coffee and waited. At 8:30 I went out. I let the dogs out of the pen so they could come with me. They ran ahead, noses to the ground. We walked in the direction of the blue house. In the road stood a woman. She wore a denim skirt and espadrilles. Her face was hidden by her hair, which fell loose either side. She was bent double, inspecting something at the side of the road. I whistled for the dogs to return to me, and at the sound she straightened and raised one hand to shield her eyes from the sun. She looked directly at me and gave me so welcoming a smile that for a moment I thought she'd mistaken me for somebody else. I saw that she'd been looking into the depths of the drain. "Hello," she said. I replied. She pushed her hair back and dropped her hand. The dogs ran forward. I whistled, but she said, "It's okay."